I think I finally made a bit of a breakthrough. The whole universe, at least at the beginning with the Big Bang, mass causes or creates gravity. Positives and negatives naturally repel each other. So like when you put two positive ends of a battery, you know, because the electrical charge is so low on a battery, you can just push them together, but they're not. The stronger the gravity, the harder it is to do. Right? If you have super large magnets and the positive ends, you try to connect the positive ends, you can't do it with bigger magnets, right? So, if I'm wrong about this, someone please tell me. I'll have to run this by someone who's smarter than me. Because when you have huge masses pulling things together, when you have gravity pulling things together, you're pulling positive charges closer towards negative charges. I think that's how that would work. What's up? Oh, I'm just making a video. Just Zach, just out. You're distracting me.
Well, sorry.
I'll bring you back. I'll bring you back in.
And one little thing.
What's up, buddy?
If you enjoy these videos, please subscribe. It's just for the fun of it.
Come here. Let me give you. I love you too, buddy. Thank you.
Oh, and also please like the video.
Yeah. I promised I was never gonna do something like that. If I get, right now I got 7 subscribers, and I love every single one of them. But I promised I was never gonna promote myself, or, you know, this is just me coming on here with my thoughts and just trying to think of these kinds of things. I'm not the kind of guy that thinks about sports, or I like to think about these kinds of things. Bigger things, right? Okay, so you have mass. You have mass creating gravity. The more mass you have, the more gravity you have, pulling positives and negative charges together. And then you would have the repelling force of those positive charge not wanting to come into close contact with other positive charges, right? So the universe, the life of the universe is, all it is mass at the beginning, the explosion, because you can't have two positives and two negatives coming into contact with each other, expanding out, and then those separated clumps of energy masses from those clumps parts of parts of molecules coming into contact with other forms of molecules. And then over time, creating larger forms, creating stars, creating planets, stars expanding out because of their the way they burn off their energy, absorbing planets, creating more mass, and then other stars connecting with other stars, galaxies coming together, and then because if you have all the mass of one galaxy in one black hole, and then you have all the mass from one black hole, from one galaxy, and then the two galaxies, like our galaxy and then our neighboring galaxy, they eventually come together. They're supposed to merge, apparently. And then all the mass from those two galaxies into one supermassive black hole. And then that supermassive black hole absorbing all the energy from neighboring stars and other galaxies. And then over time, all the matter in the universe slowly over 1 trillion, 2 trillion, 100 trillion years, eventually coming back into one super mega massive black hole, which is all the matter in the entire universe, and then expanding out again because positives and negatives can't connect. And then that happening for all eternity. All the mass at one point exploding out, slowly come backing around because of gravitational forces pulling it all back together again. And that being the cycle of the universe. Or there being an outside source and you having all that energy in one point, expanding and contracting 100 quadrillion times a nanosecond, expanding and contracting, and that being its state. And then an outside force causing a change, then creating the expansion that way. Expansion, contraction, 100 quadrillion times a nanosecond, and then an outside source coming in. Okay, I'm just finishing up. And then expanding out. So an outside force coming in, changing the equation artificially, creating the Big Bang. Or you would have expansion and contraction over 100 trillion years. The problem is, though, what if you have expansion into infinity and then the masses are so far apart that they're outside the gravitational wake and they don't come back in. And then the universe is just dead. Because in order for it to go on for infinity, it has to be the same every single time. Because you got to have the same loop happen again in infinity. You have to have the same things happen every single time in order for it to go on for infinity. Expansion out, expansion back in. That has to happen every single time. So then you can't. Yeah, because in order for there to have an end of the universe, you have to have a beginning. And if you have a change, what causes that change? Right? So if you have at the beginning of the universe expansion and contraction 100 quadrillion times a second, and then something happens to create that change, what's the cause of that change? What's the cause of that change? What's the cause of that change? Is that God? 100 quadrillion times a second, and then outside source coming in to change that equation, to change that expansion and contraction 100 quadrillion times a second, and then create the outside. And then you have the outside expansion after that. Because with the way it is now, you have a possibility of the supermassive black holes being so far apart that they're outside each other's gravitational wake, and then they don't pull themselves back into each other. They just become supermassive black holes, super far apart, trillions of miles apart, and then they're unable to pull themselves back in. Which means then the universe would just be a bunch of supermassive black holes. And then you'd have an end of the universe. Which means it would be different than what happened before, which would be expansion and contraction 100 quadrillion times a second, a nanosecond. I'm going to have to get some opinions from some other smarter people. Thank you.